Quinn staggered where he stood, unable to take everything in. He couldn't believe what he was reading right now. After seeing that last message, there was only one thing that came into his head. "Have I become a vampire?" he mumbled to himself. On the ground, Rylee stirred. No matter how hard he tried to ignore it, this message made it clear. The truth had been staring him in the face long enough. All the signs had been there. The book about vampires granting him EXP, growing weaker when hit by sunlight, the constant hunger, the clear night vision, and the way the blood of his first victim had been enticing him to consume it. Quinn was not sure he could do what the system was demanding of him. There was this moral binding, his last shred of humanity that held him back from completely turning into a beast. He stood there looking down at Rylee, who had passed out on the ground. It was the perfect opportunity for him to do as the system demanded. He gulped his saliva down as spit was starting to fill his mouth. Something was drawing him to Rylee's body. He could smell his victim's blood. He could hear the beating heart. Without realizing it, he bent towards Rylee and could see his pulse beating through his neck, the blood flowing through his veins. The smell of blood from the chipped-off tooth was strong and intoxicating. "You have received an optional quest. Drink the blood of your victim to absorb a stat point." There were many questions on Quinn's mind, questions he was unsure about and had no answers. How much blood was he supposed to consume? Would Rylee die if he did this? Would he perhaps turn and become another vampire like him? Layla had continued to watch Quinn ever since he had left the convenience store. When she had seen him follow after Rylee and donning the mask, she had understood what he was about to do. She had kept a safe distance while staying in between the trees to avoid detection. It had worked perfectly, allowing her to watch the whole thing unfold. Although Quinn's ambush had failed, he had nevertheless managed to win over his opponent by tricking him. However, everything after that had been completely strange. Out of nowhere, Quinn had first grabbed his chest, then his stomach, before going down to his knees. The expression on his face showing the great pain he was suddenly under. Layla had debated whether to run or help him, but had been unable to reach a decision. Eventually the 5 minutes were over, and Quinn had looked to have regained his composure. The next second she saw Quinn lift Rylee's body slightly off the floor while kneeling beside the unconscious boy. Yet the gaze he was looking at him was very strange. It wasn't the gloating type of look of a winner over a loser. "What the—" Layla wondered. "He can't be planning to kiss him. What is wrong with this guy?" The next moment Quinn placed the unconscious body back down. Unable to come to a decision, his mind continued to go back and forth. "Damn it! In the movies it looks so easy. Just the idea of sticking my teeth into someone. I just can't do it. Well, maybe I don't have to. I could just make a small cut on his arm and lick it. Perhaps that will do." He was mumbling to himself like a madman. Trying to confirm if what she was seeing was real, Layla started to slowly creep about closer through the bushes and trees. Then suddenly, her foot had landed on a small twig, and a snapping sound was heard. "What was that?" Quinn thought as he turned and looked around, but could see no one. However, in a panic that someone was coming his way and would find him, he left the body where it was and headed back to school. Layla was unaware of the small twig she had stepped on and snapped. She hadn't even heard the sound herself. In her eyes, she just saw Quinn suddenly leave. I wonder what that was all about. In the end, he didn't do anything. Layla was curious what the point of him at the end had been. Quinn hurried head back to school and placed the mask into his shopping bag. He noticed that the ice cream he had bought had already melted, but for some reason when he looked at it, it no longer looked so appetizing. There was a hunger in his stomach that he felt couldn't be satisfied with food, and he wondered just how long he would be able to hold it in. When Quinn had finally arrived back at the school, he decided to stop by the toilet first. He was taking a good look in the mirror to see if there were any noticeable changes, but his outward appearance looked the same as before. He even lifted up his lips so he could get a better view of his teeth, but they too were just the same. Phew, at least it looks like no one will be able to tell, but why did I feel that pain in my teeth at the time then? Quinn then decided to open his status screen to see if his stats had changed after evolving. Name, Quinn Talon. Race, Halfling. HP, 15 of 15. Experience, 50 of 200. Strength, 10. Agility, 10. Stamina, 10. Status points available, 1. From what he could see, merely his HP had increased by 50%, while everything else had remained the same. To be honest, Quinn was pretty bummed out about that, expecting more from something called an evolution. Still, at least his level up appeared to have granted him a single status point. When Quinn pressed on the system, it allowed him to increase either his strength, agility, or stamina by 1 point. Quinn thought about it for a while and decided to add a point to his agility. Agility 11. Quinn had considered increasing his strength in case he met more people like Rylee, but he had concluded that he could overcome that problem with a good beast weapon. It would therefore be wasting his stat point. As such, what he wanted right now was to become fast and agile like an assassin. Quinn wondered if there was a reason why the system had only given him 1 point, but then he recalled the optional quests it had offered him. So far, Quinn would have been able to gain an additional 2 stat points, whereas leveling up only granted a single one. If he wanted to get stronger fast, then that would be the quickest way. However, Quinn was unsure of whether or not he would be able to go through with it. At first, he would like to do more research into the system and see if there was anything he could find out about it. He had a direction now and knew his system was similar to that of a vampire. Perhaps if he learned more about them, he would be able to figure out if there was a way around drinking the blood as well. With that in mind, Quinn decided to head to his room where he could hear Vorden and Peter practicing together. Peter was trying his best to learn the ability book the military had given him, while Vorden was tutoring him. "What took you so long?" Vorden greeted him with a question. "We were starting to get worried. You might have gotten lost." "No, I just went exploring the city a little," Quinn told a white lie. "I'm a bit tired, so I think I'm going to bed early today." "Maybe we should call it a day for now as well?" Peter suggested, visibly exhausted. Not wanting to push him, Vorden agreed, and with that, the group turned off the lights and went to sleep. Although Quinn had been the one to suggest going to sleep, he was unable to. His stomach was in a tremendous amount of pain, and he had too much on his mind. If what the message had claimed would be true, Quinn only had a limited amount of time to solve his problem. However, there was nothing he could do. The school's curfew began at 10 p.m., and if you were caught outside after that, major punishments awaited. With no other choice, he closed his eyes, hoping to deal with his problems in the morning. Eventually, he managed to drift off to sleep. When he woke up the next day, the pain was worse than before. His head was pounding, and the first thing Quinn did was open up his system. 10 hours have passed. Your hunger grows. You have lost -10 HP. HP 5 of 15. Your HP will continue to decrease every hour. Even though Quinn had lost 2/3 of his HP, it strangely didn't feel like he was hurt or dying. It was different from when he was out in the sun. Instead, it felt like all his senses were on high alert. "Hey, Quinn, you all right, man?" Vorden asked, seeing Quinn's face. "Yeah, I just got to go somewhere." Quinn excused himself as he rushed out of the room, heading down to the canteen. Everything that had happened so far had been a miscalculation on Quinn's part. Although the system had warned him about his 1 HP loss every hour, he hadn't expected his body to react like that. In fact, he had only planned to sleep for 5 hours. That way he would have nearly half a day to come up with a plan how to rid himself of his problem, ideally before morning classes started. Quinn started to calculate how much time he had left. Breakfast was mandatory and lasted from 8 till 9, followed by classes that would last until noon. Their break was merely to get from class to lunch. In other words, for the next 4 hours, he was required to be somewhere in the school. Of course, there was always the option of skipping. However, this wasn't a regular school. The army would severely punish him and hunt him down if he behaved like a troublemaker. However, did that really matter if he was going to die anyway? Quinn made his way to the canteen queue to be served some food. He was taking in deep breaths, slowly, an action that was supposed to help him get the hang of his heightened senses. Right now, he was able to hear the conversation from the other side of the room, pots and pans clanging in the kitchen as if they were next to him. Slowly, Quinn was figuring out how to ignore all those sounds, clearing his mind. Just then, Rylee entered the canteen. Surprisingly, he had no bruises on his body from yesterday's fight. The only possibility was that he had made a full recovery at the medical center. Nevertheless, he looked like he was in a terrible mood after that experience. Ironically, as soon as he saw Quinn, he decided to have found the perfect target to take out all his pent-up frustration on. Rylee walked past all the level 1s that were in the queue until he eventually reached the spot where Quinn was standing. "Hey, Pipsqueak, you got a problem if I cut in front of you?" Rylee asked as a clear provocation. However, Quinn was too busy trying to isolate the sounds from his mind to pay attention to him. "I'm talking to you," Rylee said, this time louder, and looked at Quinn's wristwatch. Seeing the number 1 shine brightly on it brought back bad memories of the night before. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Rylee shouted as he grabbed Quinn by the collar. In that instant, Rylee's face was incredibly close to his. Just like yesterday, he could hear Rylee's heartbeat. He could feel the blood flowing through his arm and muscles lifting his shirt. Something took over Quinn's body, and he immediately hit Rylee's arm away and pounced on him, causing the two of them to fall to the ground. Quinn was now on top of Rylee and had both his hands pinned down. "Get off me, you crazy animal!" Rylee screamed, but when Rylee tried to overpower Quinn and lift his hands, it was impossible. His ability to harden his skin was useless in this kind of situation. Then, Quinn started to feel something growing in his mouth. Quinn placed his head just a few inches away from Rylee's neck and got ready to bite in. Just as he opened his mouth, though, he felt someone pull him by the back of his collar and chucked him off Rylee towards the people in the queue. "Don't touch one of my boys," the newcomer said. Dan was a large teenager with a muscular build. His appearance was more like that of a bald adult. "Dan, thank you so much." Rylee bowed as he stood up from the ground, sweating. "You're dead now, boy." As soon as Dan took one step forward, though, Vorden stepped in front of Quinn with Peter. "Do you really want to cause a problem?" Vorden asked, lifting his arm to show the power level of his wristwatch. In reality, Vorden was only bluffing. Vorden's power very much depended on what ability he copied, and right now all he had access to was Peter's level 1 Earth ability. If they were to get into a fight here, there was no contest on who would win. Fortunately, Vorden's plan succeeded, as Dan decided to back down after seeing the number 5, taking Rylee with him. Before Rylee walked off, he mimicked Quinn's action of imitating someone cutting his head off. "Oh, thank God! I can't believe that worked!" Peter sighed, aware of Vorden's secret. After the canteen incident was over, something became clear to Quinn. The teachers wouldn't step in no matter what happened. In the canteen there were many guards standing in each corner of the room, but not a single one had done anything to help. After the group finished eating, it was time for them to go to their morning classes. Quinn was unable to concentrate on anything. All he could do was try to calm himself down while in the middle of class and watch his HP slowly tick away. It was driving him insane seeing the number go down each hour, making him regret not having bitten into Rylee's neck when he had the chance. By lunchtime, Quinn once again rushed off without Vorden and Peter. 1 of 15 HP. "What the hell is happening to me?" Quinn was worried. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Each time Quinn's HP went down, it was getting harder and harder to control his own body. Sooner or later, he thought, he would go crazy. During class, he had multiple visions of tearing the place apart and ripping out the blood from his fellow students' necks to crave his desire. Without realizing where he was walking, Quinn eventually ended up in the library. In the quiet corner of the library down one of the aisles was the fiction section. "Please have something I can use," Quinn prayed as he took out fantasy book after fantasy book about vampires. In some of the books, vampires were able to live off animal blood. Unfortunately, Quinn's system had clearly stated his need for human blood. Even if that hadn't been the case, it would be next to impossible to find an animal in time. In other stories, vampires had been made responsible for raiding the hospitals for their supplies. Alas, the one in the city was heavily guarded, and he wouldn't reach it in time even if running. For the first time, Quinn could feel himself getting weaker. He sat on the floor and read one last book and found nothing of use. When he closed the book, he could see Layla standing there opposite him. "Are you okay?" Layla asked, concerned for Quinn as he was starting to look very pale. Layla bent down so she was at eye level with him and placed her hand on his forehead to check his temperature. "You're so cold. Do you want me to take you to the nurse's office?" Layla offered. Quinn hadn't heard a single word she had said. Her neck had been too mesmerizing. The urge was uncontrollable. Sighing, he pulled Layla by the arm, bringing her close to him. A weak sorry escaped his lips as he bit into her neck.
Subscribe to the Pocket FM Blockbuster YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notifications. Check out our channel for more exciting shows.